Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Cradle News Roundup coming to you live. My name is Esteban Carrillo. I am the head of news for the Cradle, and as usual, I'm joined by my friends and colleagues, content creator and writer for the Cradle, Karim Shami, and columnist and editor for the Cradle, Sharmin Narwani. And as usual, before we start, just a friendly reminder to make sure as soon as you arrive, hit that like button. We really need all of the help that we can get to break through the algorithm. An algorithm that does not like spaces such as this. This is why we need your support. Make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't. We're very close to 50,000 subscribers, so thank you all for that. And if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. Also, check out our memberships here on the channel. But as usual, and above all, check out our Patreon where you can become a direct supporter of the Cradle. We need your support. We're currently doing a Patreon drive until the end of the year. We need 5,000 Patreon subscribers to become fully self-sufficient, keep the Cradle independent, and allow us to continue to do the work that we do and offer you even more stuff. So please, if you can, for as little as $5 a month, you can become a patron and support independent journalism. And well, with that all out of the way, I think we should start talking, guys, about a report that Al Jazeera published a couple of days ago about the use of thermal and thermobaric weapons in the Gaza Strip, U.S.-made bombs launched by Israel on the civilian population of Gaza that have caused the disappearance of nearly 3,000 Palestinians. And when I mean disappearance, well, the word that the report uses is evaporate. These bombs have evaporated people. They are, as I said, thermobaric bombs, also known as vacuum bombs, that essentially, when they hit, they unleash a spray, a mist, a cloud of flammable fuel that is then ignited, creating a large explosion that consumes everything around it. I mean, one of the doctors that spoke with Al Jazeera described essentially the effect that this has on the human body as vaporizing it, making all of the fluids boil and all of the soft tissue disappear. And of course, this is not, and I want to highlight this in particular, this is not really all that new, this information. I mean, it's confirmed, the number is new, 2,842 at least confirmed Palestinians who have been disappeared in this manner. But the use of these bombs and the reports of people being essentially turned to dust date back to at least mid-2024. We at the Cradle have at least a couple of reports from around that time of human rights organizations and just, regular people talking about what is happening. Now, these weapons, of course, provided by the United States. I want to bring up the actual names of the bombs. The MK-84 Hammer, which was also dropped on a residential neighborhood in Beirut, so not just Gaza. The BLU-109 Bunker Buster, which, as the name implies, is used, for underground bunkers, and yet was deployed on residential buildings and even displaced camps. In particular, the BLU-109 was used by Israel in the Al-Mawasi area of Gaza, which was declared a safe zone in September 2024, and it evaporated at the very least 22 people. And then there's the GBU-39, which is designed to keep a building structure relatively intact while destroying everything inside. It kills via a pressure wave that ruptures lungs and a thermal wave that incinerates soft tissue. The monstrosity of what I'm talking about, I mean, I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around it. I'm sure you guys feel similarly. U.S. provided weapons that have flowed non-stop to Israel to be used against Palestinians, against Lebanese, against Yemenis. I mean, against the people of West Asia generally. And as I think I've said this before, and I will say it again for sure. Whatever number we hear coming out of Gaza, be it the 72,000 killed or the 2,842 disappeared by these bombs, is where the counting needs to start. It's not where the counting ends. And, we know that at the very least, around 3,000 families have been completely erased from the civil registry in Gaza, and 6,000 more families have only one survivor left. A clear campaign of ethnic cleansing. But I think, I provided enough context. I know you guys also have some thoughts. So without further ado, please, I want to hear from you.
Well, it's a death cult, right? I mean, we've established
Yes.
that. thinks nothing of human sacrifice in not just the tens of thousands, but the millions. I mean, we have now, for the last 2 years, lived through revelations and revisiting history where we've seen the Israelis poison water wells of Palestinians. We've seen them rape prisoners, and the nation rally behind the rapists to support them in their right to rape. We have seen them, distract us to talk about Iranian nuclear weapons when they're vaporizing humans and children and anything. There's no. This is not a weapon that targets, right? This is a weapon of mass destruction.
Yes, exactly.
Essentially. And when I was reading about just like bits of flesh that may be remaining, just that, not even bones.
Specks of blood, they also said, the only thing that remained.
It's beyond comprehension, and we were debating before this show the title, the BAALISTS are coming for Iran, and some were thinking that's too much of a niche or fringe word, and I have to say I don't see that anymore. I see all kinds of people talking about Baal and Baalists, something that just wasn't in the lexicon.
Like
even
a couple of weeks ago.
a few months now. We've heard this from the American right and conservative talk shows who have turned against Israel. And, there's this Baalist theme is everywhere. And, I think it was something many of our viewers probably saw on social media yesterday, Wednesday, which was the 47th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution in Iran, in which tens of millions of Iranians turned out on the streets of Iran to rally behind their government and to show support for their government as war drums beat from outside to kill Iranians, because that's what it's going to do. And so among the rallies we saw, and I think these are the pictures that went around the world on social media, were effigies of Baal that were being burned by the Iranians, as well as
very timely effigies, yes.
Yeah, Israeli flags. So it's not just an American right thing. I mean, I think everybody, with the release of the Epstein files, or at least 3 million of them, people are already seeing, there's a lot of reference to children. There's reference to human sacrifice, even eating. People are talking about eating the flesh of those they sacrifice. It's kind of like every conspiracy theorist possibly out there. Everything rolled out in one and turns out to be true. So this concept of Baal, who was, by the way, not a nefarious figure in early days before the advent of monotheistic religions. It was a Canaanite, worship of Baal, who was known as a storm and fertility deity. But there were at times extreme rituals. I don't know that it was a normal thing, but there were at times extreme rituals to bring about rain and bring about crops. And sometimes these were included sacrifices, human, and then perhaps in even fewer instances, animals, and then in fewer instances, humans. But the cult of Baal, as it's known now, has morphed since, prior to the monotheistic religions. And it is very much associated now with sacrifice and evil and even Satanism, because it is the worshiping of idols, right? It's idol worshiping in a sense. And so people who have gone underground to idol worship at a time of monotheistic religions have become more extreme, perhaps, in their kind of worship. And so it's a symbol of pagan corruption. But then we see it all over the discourse around the Epstein files. I think Epstein's niece, that's how I first became introduced to the notion, talked about their worship of Baal, all right, and the drugging of kids. and sexual violence against these drugged kids, even their own kids. She was assaulted and raped by family members as well. And she talks about the cult of Baal. Then we realize or learn now that Jeffrey Epstein had a bank account called Baal.
Yes. Yes.
So, I
A
mean,
deposit, yeah.
here's the thing. Baal is associated with mass human sacrifice. And so from incinerating human beings in Gaza to now the head of the Baal cult is in Washington, just met with the US president, and they basically are potentially colluding to kill, millions more human sacrifices in Iran. So that's why we call it the Baalists are heading to
I
Iran.
mean, I like to think of the butler welcome the real leader of the White House, and that's what we saw on Wednesday. Although it is interesting, and I will highlight this: no no media, what do you call it? No press conference, right? There was no press conference following the meeting with Netanyahu and Trump, just like a release, just some statements. So obviously maybe didn't go the way that the master of the house wanted. Maybe the butler's pushing back a bit, but at the same time we are hearing that the USS George H.W. Bush is being prepared. The airstrike carrier group is being prepared for deployment to West Asia. Apparently Donald Trump, this is what he said in his tweet, right? He put out one of his well-known endless tweets. I mean, my God, the man just writes these huge blocks of text in which he said, I told Netanyahu that I prefer diplomacy, essentially is what it boiled down to, his message, but that if not, of course, it will cause death and destruction, etc., the usual threats. While at the same time, and not to make I do want to highlight this again. I know you mentioned it, Charmaine. I mean, millions of people on the streets of Iran yesterday, right? It was yesterday. I saw a count somewhere around 26 million people who took to the streets, many of them saying, there's many interviews of women in particular saying, some of them saying, I don't agree with the government. I want a change in the government, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sell out my nation. Other people saying, I will defend this government and the leader until my last breath, and the invaders are never going to be able to achieve anything. So, the Iranians are well prepared, it seems, for this attack. But on the other hand, the question still remains. Because I do think, like Charmaine, to your point about the idol worshipping and the human sacrifices, what more evidence do we need, honestly? What more evidence do we need of, especially just looking at what's happening in Gaza still to this day? I mean, they just completely erased Rafah, a city that has stood for over 3,300 years, is gone. It's just
Gaza's
completely
all
gone.
over the Bible. Gaza's all over the Bible. And yet these, Christian Zionists in America, 10 million of them, are crying about the salvation that Israel brings. It's kind of insane.
And the Iranian monarchists and the evangelicals in the West, and what do you call this? Like the far right in Latin America also, they just completely bought this myth that the US and Israel bring prosperity, even though all evidence points to the contrary.
By the way, just worth noting that Baalbek in Lebanon is named after Baal. So it wasn't just the Canaanites; it was Phoenicians and is it Ammonites? I think who again pre-monotheistic religions, right? Where paganism was.
We're talking about thousands and thousands, of years.
Yeah, and so Baalbek in Lebanon is named after Baal, but you ain't gonna see any human sacrifices and weird child sex rituals there because it is kind of dominated by the Lebanese resistance. Will kick the ass of anyone who does those kind of immoral things, which makes me think we're really looking at, despite the many decades of Americans casting their enemies in, as evil and them as good, we are really looking at good versus evil playing out today. And increasingly, those who have thought they were on the side of good are recognizing that their masters are the evil ones. And so these crazy words that you would never use in political discourse or geopolitical conversations, is becoming commonplace. There's real evil. If you think about, the people who identify themselves as Phoenicians here, a lot of them are pro-Israel in this country, in Lebanon. There's
Unfortunately.
a wildness. I mean, the distortion of Christianity in this country, as well as around the world, okay, the colonization of Christianity to become, a mouthpiece for the ruling order there is distressing and come to the attention of many, many Christians lately, very lately, and I think we're seeing entire systems now fracture, entire belief systems, you know.
I think, I saw a very good comparison a few weeks ago. It was the days after this release of the Epstein files. Some people were saying, essentially, we are living through a real life version of the Pasolini movie Salò, the 120 Days of Sodom, which is, one of the most difficult films to sit through because he goes through essentially all of these things that are there described in the Epstein files. Now, of course, that was a work of fiction, and we are dealing with reality, and not just reality, but as you said, Charmaine, the people who rule the Western world in particular are just like up to here in all of this stuff. Karim,
I mean, even the word Sodom, okay, Sodom and Gomorrah, they're Israeli words to describe their territories. Everything is coalescing around this decrepit, immoral, inhumane state. It's kind of crazy.
yeah, the Marquis de Sade couldn't have written a more macabre,
100%.
situation as this. Karim, do you have any thoughts about this situation, about everything we've just been discussing?
Well, these stuff are now being discussed in the West, but here in Lebanon, يعني, since we are young, we hear them and we know about them. To be honest, for instance, now the majority or most of the Americans now they see in the news or in the social media that the Zionists and the Israelis control the United States, or at least control the foreign policy of the United States. Well, here we're talking about that since I was born. I hear that now the West is opening their eyes about this, and they are believing in this. Now they are knowing these are not conspiracy theories or as they name it, Hamas propaganda. These are realities that have been accomplished in the West and through the Zionist entity since decades. And now we're talking about Baal. I want to get a similar name, which is Hani Baal. And I want to talk about Babylon, because if you check the Western media, these are not coincidences. And for instance, if you search any character named Hannibal in the West, he will be like a very terrible person, and he will be like a human eating flesh, and so on and so on. If you ask yourself why, the answer is that historically Hannibal was historically from Lebanon, and he went to Tunisia and he defeated the Roman Empire like 3,000 years ago. Until now, the West, they hate what he did. That's why the majority of the characters, they name it Hannibal, which is a very weird name that comes from Lebanon and Tunisia and the Mediterranean, just to show that this historical figure is a villain. And the same about Babylon or Babylonia, which was the first cradle, and it was the cradle of civilization, and it started from Iraq, Mesopotamia. And if you Google Babylon, Babylonia, or anything of these names, you will get like websites that are for adults. So these entities and these people systematically, they try to like reshape history and reshape names and to connect your mind. If you read Hannibal, he will never be a historical powerful leader. He will be like a flesh-eating person. If you want to read about Babylon, it's not that great ancient city where the civilization started. It's like something that only adults do, for instance. So these are part of their way. And for instance, if you want to talk about Epstein file, first, if you Google what Lolitas mean, especially in the 80s and 90s, you will understand what Lolitas mean in movies in the West. And if you check his flights are called Lolitas. And if you check about the island, it's called Virgin Island and Lolita Express. and all of these stuff, they put them in your inside you, in front of you, to tell you, look, okay, we're doing it, and nobody's doing anything. And
With such
people,
arrogance. Yeah, such
just arrogance. And people like us, they will tell you, oh, you are a conspiracy theory. He's a businessman, for instance.
Or you're
you
an
know?
anti-Semite. Did you see
Yeah.
this thing, by the way, on the Congress, on the U.S. Congress, in which one of the Epstein victims was called an anti-Semite for saying that she was abused by Jewish men?
Yeah, and apparently she said that her grandfather was killed in the Holocaust, which is iconic also.
And
You
then
can't
she
write.
walked out.
You can't write this thing up. So, guys, before we continue, I just want to highlight we have nearly 300 people watching right now and only about half as many likes. We need to catch up. We need to catch up with those. Please hit that like button, everyone who hasn't yet. Go ahead, Sharmin. You want to say something?
Just as an aside, since we're delving into the past of this region, I was doing a crossword puzzle last night, and one of the words was Saracen, which
She
yeah.
always doing puzzles every time I see her.
It's just an ADD thing. Like I'll be reading something or watching like a YouTube, like interview show, and I have to be crosswording at the same time. So Saracen comes up, and Saracen, it's just such a weird word to come up in this puzzle. It's like how the Crusaders talked about Arabs or Turks or Muslims, when they were doing the Crusades. And just, it's kind of extraordinary, that the church, for money and power, launched 7-8 crusades against the people of this region, the cradle of civilization, and which became more than like a conversion exercise. People were massacred here. I'm not pointing the finger at Christianity. I'm pointing the finger at the politicization of religion. And some of the worst aspects of Islam that have come out in this last century or last decades is also from the politicization of Islam, by people who seek power and money. But this has been going on for a very, very long time in the Western Christian world. And really, Christianity has been colonized in this region. You can't believe they think they're white. A lot of the people here, they're as brown as anyone, and they think they're white. They forget, more than anyone, that Christianity came from right here, not over the Atlantic. It came from right here, brown people, And then I'm convinced part of the reason that the West hates Russia so much is because they didn't pollute Christianity that way at all. They, they upheld it as a value system rather than as a political tool.
Yeah, and the same applies. Today on TikTok I was scrolling while she was playing crosswords. A video came out with a blonde girl, blue eyes, and these interviews on the streets of New York or whatever, and they asked her, "Are you a Zionist?" She said, "Yes, we have. This is our right, and I have the right to return to the land of my ancestors."
Oh my God.
If you have basic science, if you went to the school for a few years, you will know that blue eyes, blonde people don't exist in Palestine.
No, I mean, who are the real Semites, right? It's the Lebanese, it's the Palestinians. The
Look, for me,
Jordanians.
for me, imagine you see for instance, I don't know, a person from Nigeria wants to go back to Moscow, for instance. No, it doesn't make sense. But they normalized it, as they normalized that Islam is a very bad religion, as they normalized if you want to be a good Christian, you should support Israel, and they did all this because people are unfortunately ignorant. Majority of the people in any country, they are ignorant in specific stuff, and that's where the Zionists jump and work. They did it in Hollywood through music. They did it through many things, books. Even the names, for instance, if you go back to the original name Semite are the people that
No, you're saying it right. You're saying it right. Originally.
Originally were born and started their civilization in the east of Mediterranean. So, which means the coast of Syria, the coast of Lebanon, the coast of Palestine, and some parts of Egypt. But now they completely changed the wording and the meaning of the word. If you're anti-Semite, means you're anti-Jew, means you're an anti-Holocaust, you're a Holocaust denier. يعني it's so weird how they had this ability to change the wording and the terms and everything. And this is
Misdirection. Yeah.
yeah, misdirection. يعني they know how to do it, and that's our job here to like inform people. And yes,
And here's another big misdirection. Okay, what is happening here in this region is. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to also, because Sharmin.
You're scratching. You're scratching. Your
Yeah,
ear.
there's a scratching noise. It might be the cable, Karim, or something. Or is it your beard hitting the microphone?
Jeez, that's a
Yeah,
rough
so
beard.
yeah, because Sharmin mentioned that people in Lebanon, they say that they are Phoenicians because they don't want to say that they are Arabs, because Arabs is connected to Islam and people think that they are Arab Muslims. That's why they say that they are Phoenicians. But now their numbers are shrinking. Why? Because previously, when you say you are an Arab, means that Damascus is your like is your
Is your mic.
what's called, it's your compass, or Egypt, or you love Abdel Nasser, or even you love Saddam Hussein. But now what they did, Arabs are now, you either you are either with Saudi Arabia or UAE. So now they accept the word Arab. So that's how they play on the words.
It's something interesting, Karim, what you're talking about, because I am very concerned about what's happening right now, not just with Iran, but like across the world. Because first of all, genocide has been completely normalized. Like at this point, we have just become accustomed to, even the stuff we went over at the start of this episode, which is people being turned to literal dust, and absolutely no action being taken, right? Everything living in impunity. And throughout the decades, this particular group, right, the Zionists, the Anglo-Zionist Alliance, right, UK, US, Israel, etc., they have been presenting Islam, right, as the big evil, and that's how they try to take on Iran. But today, February 2026, I feel like we need to consider that this definition of what is evil has expanded way past religion, right? Right now, they are trying, for example, to starve Cuba, like full on starve the nation of 9 million people of Cuba. They are, threatening Iran. They are doing all of these things not to, eradicate. No, actually, no. Yes, to eradicate the idea of resistance, to the idea of there can be a system that opposes ours, or there can be an alternative way of doing things. I mean, it's really a supremacist ideology gone global with the tools of genocide. And on top of that, you have to add the technological layer. Because always remember the men who were seated right behind Donald Trump in his inauguration. It was all of the billionaire tech lords who are now developing tools that in just a matter of months are going to replace large swaths of the labor force across the world. I mean, what they're going to do with AI, not just in terms of surveillance, but in taking people's jobs, it's something that I feel the masses are not even considering as a threat at this point. And it's going to come not for them, it's going to come for us. It's going to come for everyone. And it's being controlled by the people who normalize genocide and who are using their nuclear prowess, their military prowess, to starve our population, to kidnap presidents, to threaten a de facto annexation of territory of even of their allies, like they have with Greenland, like they have with Canada. I mean, this I cannot even begin to wrap my head around exactly the scope of the threat that these people are posing right now to all of humanity.
So here's the thing. I mean, there are too many distractions. People can't pay attention to all of these things, all these bugs that are crawling out from under these rocks. It's just not possible. And of course, the media isn't playing fair either. The media is controlled by the people who control things. And so they're not reporting on things that are, unhelpful to their masters. But I mean, I disagree that genocide has been normalized. There's been no punishment that has been, levied against the genociders. That is true. But I don't think it's been normalized. The thing is, the genocide, the Israeli genocide against Palestinians has started to erode all the narratives. Okay, so you haven't seen action yet, but here's the thing, and consider this, that the Americans never went to war unless they set the propaganda groundwork for it, that they got the sort of check of approval by American citizens. You know what I mean? Not that they needed them, right? These guys were distracted first by Mickey Mouse and then by like Netflix and whatever. That's not the issue.
But
they needed no opposition or what were you going to say?
I was telling you, I wanted to ask you, do you think that Trump will have the same strategy? Because it's clear he has different strategy.
I think Trump is a wrench in the machine. I think Trump is not, is not going to follow this protocol.
No, he can't, because he cannot get support. He came in on MAGA and no war, and he has completely let down his base, and they're being vocal about it. So basically what the American establishment likes to do is propagandize its own people to support a war. Okay? Mm-hmm. In this case, the very base that brought this president is really against it. There can be opposition for American wars, but they make it look like fringe, right? They work on it so these people are not viewed as valuable, their opinions legitimate, etc., right? They rob opposition voices of credibility. In this case, they can't do that. Trump and his administration can't do that with MAGA. They can't do it. It's not possible for this U.S. administration and the entire media machinery they have behind it, and around the world, by the way, to get Americans to buy into a war against Iran. We've seen this from the outset, and it continues. With these Epstein files coming out, and Americans who've been suffering economically for a long time, watching the rise of billionaires, watching these billionaires become billionaires many times over during COVID, during the pandemic, which they still ask themselves, why did this happen? How did this happen? Who was behind it? With every conspiracy theory they've ever heard and disregarded, now looking to be true, their focus, American focus, is on their elite, and they believe all of them to be dirty, if not evil. The convergence of that kind of, undoing of the great American narrative, number one, all right, with the fact that the American administration cannot propagandize for this war, makes this a very different situation. If Trump goes to war with Iran, I mean, we saw in the June war, a lot of Americans kind of supporting Iran on this because Israel had become hated. This genocide has not gone unnoticed. This genocide, there are going to be punishments doled out, either by people, if not by courts, right? By people. Israel is isolated. It's coming. The fact that an American-Israeli war against Iran, you would have 99% of the world, okay, 1% are Zionists, 99% of the world, including most Americans, cheering on Iran, is going to completely collapse the elaborate U.S. system of lies, of subterfuge, of propaganda, of mind control, narrative control.
I don't think that's, I disagree with you in that one, Charmaine, because I feel like everything's on hold right now before they can implement, whatever it is, their master plan. This is why the Ellison family keeps buying up properties and, to control the media, to control social media. This is why Netanyahu talks about social media as the eighth front.
They
Why?
can't
Why
even
do you
shut
think
up
it can't?
Candace Owens. They cannot.
Maybe they choose not to. Maybe they choose
No,
not
no,
to.
no, no, no. They're trying every which way. They're throwing millions of dollars into doing this. But what's happened is it's spawned more and more podcasts, like big podcasts on the American right, who are basically watching Candace's podcast and then doing entire shows reporting on what Candace had to say. Like, it is exponential. It is see, the thing is, these aren't fringe people. This is the base. These are the people who made this election happen. Okay, this is the American majority that made this election possible.
But now, he's talking about...
and also,
Meaning the destroyer is in the American House right now.
and also, Esteban, I disagree about something. It's not 99%. She forgot the 1% of Arab Zionists also.
So
No,
it's
I said
98%.
Zionist. The 1% is Zionist, period. Okay,
So it's
and
9%,
Parafamily says Charmina's right. So there you go.
I mean,
Okay,
there's
please 10
different
people
opinions
say
on
that Karim is right.
They love your beard, Karim. No, I think this is such a difficult conversation to have too, because so many things are still developing. And, I will always look in particular at what they're doing with the Pax Silica, right? Like the resource graph, we need to protect Israel at all costs. The boosting of the defense budget, Trump wants it to be a $1.5 trillion. The boosting of the ICE budget, you cannot look past that. Like, ICE is going to be the most or the better funded agency, more than the FBI, more than the CIA, more than the NSA, like by a lot, by tens of millions of dollars, essentially this paramilitary force that responds to the whims of Emperor Trump. And then he's also talking about nationalizing November's elections, which is essentially, sending federal troops to take control of polling places in the states where, Donald Trump or the Republican Party may not have the upper hand. So we are like, we keep talking about being on the edge of the precipice. I think we're already, like at the very least a third of the way down. The problem is that we have, in particular, and I think this is an issue everywhere in every country, we have populations that are kind of still asleep. Like somebody says here, like the people in the U.S., they don't want the inconvenience of affecting change. They just want to go to work, get their Starbucks, watch their Netflix. I don't think it's just people in the U.S. I think it's people everywhere.
That's people who can afford it, Esteban. Okay, and those people are less and less. That's the thing. The American majority is feeling the pain, feeling economic pain, and is therefore paying attention to politics. You see, when the West borrowed wildly, everyone had money because they had credit cards, right? They borrowed wildly. Now it's time to pay the piper, right? You have to pay those premiums. And now everyone's feeling the pinch. And so they're starting to pay attention to politics in a whole different way. And they're paying attention to politics through their peers, right? On social media, on podcasts, talking with each other. Nobody trusts their government anymore. Poll after poll after poll shows that Americans don't trust politicians. And I think on the bottom of that list was journalists. I remember seeing this list. It was like, maybe 15 different or 10 different, people Americans don't trust. At the bottom was journalists. I think it's a perfect time to segue to a subject that you wanted to talk about, Esteban. Kate224 asks, talk about the US dollar declining yesterday and today and the rise of the yuan. This is what is happening that is going to take an already very, very, very difficult time for the American political and economic system. You said we'd gone a third down. What's going to precipitate the next third down? And it's going to be things like this.
So I feel like before I talk about that, I just like to give you my perspective. Is very, very quickly. I feel like we are in a race in between, the start of an all-out war in West Asia and the collapse of the U.S. currency, and in between that, there's also this race to create the AI security state that is, explained better as the Pax Judaica framework, the theory, etc. But in any case, so yeah, very interesting things with the dollar and China, right? A couple of weeks ago, Xi Jinping wrote an article in a CCP publication in which he, the Financial Times reported it as Xi Jinping calls for the yuan to replace the dollar as the global reserve currency, which is not actually what he said. That's not actually what he says in this article. What he says is we need to build our currency up so that it can become a reliable reserve currency. And then, I mean, it's truly amazing, this article. Some of his lines are so great. He says, and I'm going to paraphrase completely because it's been more than a few days since I read it. He says, like a financial system or a currency that has no purpose, or a system whose only purpose is to, money for money's sake. He compared it to a tree without roots, right? It's just like it's gonna cause chaos and it's gonna cause anarchy because you're not trying to build anything. You're just trying to, have these huge Scrooge McDuck style piles of money, or like a pool full of money that you can like dive into, exactly, except of creating value to pursue progress, to pursue development, to, I don't know, cure illnesses, etc., make people's lives better, stuff like that. And this is what he says, right? We need to build a system that will always prioritize the needs of the many instead of just, hoarding cash. And that's essentially how he presents what the yuan needs to do. And then just a few days ago, the Chinese government ordered several banks to reduce or to stop purchasing U.S. treasuries at a time in which China has already gotten rid of billions upon billions of U.S. Treasury bonds. They were at one point, and I cannot remember here, maybe if you guys or someone in the chat will correct me, but they were either the first or the second, right, holding the most U.S. treasuries. And now I believe they may be 3 or 4. They keep dropping places. Same for other BRICS nations who have been getting rid of bonds while hoarding gold. So that's happening with China, and I think it's interesting, right? Because the economic angle, we cannot beat them with weapons. We cannot beat them technologically, not yet at least. But their economy is in such bad shape that it won't take a lot of pressure for it to collapse. As you said, Charmaine, like internally is already a bad situation. You have the AI bubble, which feeds again into this idea of the resource war and the AI surveillance system that they are desperate to implement worldwide. But at the same time, I mean, time is running out on the US dollar. In a few months, Donald Trump is going to replace the head of the Federal Reserve, right? There's a big, that's going to be a big deal as well, because he wants to keep interest rates down, which will increase inflation. I mean, this is a recipe for disaster, just like the tariff war was a recipe for disaster.
By the way, I just want to, bring back the analogy of the Crusades. Why did the Crusaders lose after attacking this region multiple times and killing and destroying as much as they possibly could? Money, logistics, and manpower. And what do we have now? They lack money, logistics. They're being stopped from flying over this one's airspace. They, because of Iranian missiles, they have to be super careful but whether they can even be spotted, and and then manpower. The Israelis, let's not just look at the Americans, but the Israelis cannot find enough soldiers to fight for them. In fact, let's look at that little thing. Look in our group chat. There's the one of how many foreigners fought in the Israeli army. It's kind of crazy, right? They had to import manpower to fight their wars. Import. Is it up on the screen? Let me see. Yeah. So look at that. 12,000 American dual nationals fighting the war. But look at that. Israel has to import manpower. It's that simple. It's how many? I think 9 million is the population of Israel, and a whole bunch of those are Arab Israelis.
They said 10 million the last time I checked, but yeah.
Yeah, whatever. Please, people are leaving. Something added a million.
Quarter of a million Arab.
Yeah, and 1 million of those are Russians, all right, with dual nationality, who could just as easily flee back to a Russia that would welcome them home, And it's just they don't have the numbers. They simply don't. They don't have the money. They need America. Right? America doesn't have money. The dollar's collapsing. Nobody wants to buy U.S. securities, right? Everybody's buying gold and silver. logistics, the Americans have so many bases in the region, but they're still bargaining on, with their local partners on, can I use this? Can I use that?
I mean,
That's
if
why
you
the
want to,
Crusades failed. This is the modern Crusades. It's over, ballists.
I mean, if you want to talk about logistics, Charmaine, I guess we can talk about DP World, right? The Emirati
Yeah.
shipping company, and the fallout
Another ballist.
of its CEO. God, I forget his name. Sulaiman is his last name, right? Sultan Karim or someone. If somebody can look up the name, I would appreciate it very much. But the CEO of DP World, who very close with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, this man just keeps popping up on the Epstein emails in many different situations. He was named by U.S. lawmaker Thomas Macy as the person behind the torture video that Jeffrey Epstein
Sultan
gushes about.
Ahmad bin Sulayem.
the the one and only head of DP World, who now is facing the repercussions of his name popping up once and again in the Epstein files, because both Canada's and the United
the UK.
Kingdom's largest pension funds have said they will divest from or not approve any new investments. I think is actually what they said. Will not approve any new investments on DP World, which is, I think it is the biggest shipping, like a port company in the world. They have control of so many ports across the entire
Certainly
world.
the most active. Definitely the most active. Actively looking for investments, actively looking for new geographies. I have to say that it's kind of astonishing to me when I read this. I think I sent it to people in our group and said, can we fact check this? Because Canada and the UK come out on this. There's been no court case. There's been no, I mean, he did things with Epstein, right? There are a lot of people in there. Nothing. Everyone else is ignored. Nobody. I mean, Mandelson in the UK, whatever. These guys quit. But nothing punitive, right? Mm-hmm. And yet they're going after this one UAE guy, this Emirati guy. Genocide's fine. Let's sell Israel weapons. This guy's mentioned in emails. And the country of Canada, the country of the United Kingdom, decide to cut ties with this group. It's weird. They're doing weird things. They're not acting normally. Maybe it's like to show that they're taking action on Epstein, but what do? They go for the brown Arab. You know what I mean? I think there was one guy imprisoned, sent to jail as a result of the entire fallout of the 2008 crash. One person blamed, and it was like an Indian American CEO. What is this? It's a joke. Nobody's going to be like, oh, thank goodness they took action on like Epstein's misdeeds. No, this isn't going to do anything. And 2 entire countries did that.
That's bad. That's now you know why these people are in in their positions. That the P word is not. I don't think he's a CEO because he's well educated, but because he has.
But I'm sure he went to the top schools, Karim. Of that I'm certain.
They all do. If you have a few $1,000s, you can send your son to these schools. But also, don't forget. I forgot her name. There's also multiple UAE feminists that were mentioned, and one of them was a speaker of the UAE in the UN. The one that emailed Epstein, I think, more than 340 times or 430 times. I forgot. It's either one of them. So I think these people are in their positions because they are willing to do all these things. Because, for instance, I think, I don't know how to say it on YouTube. If you see such an action in front of you and you don't talk, then you earn the trust of whatever king or Amir you are with, and for them you being trustful and shutting your mouth is better than having certificates or education or even doing stuff for your country. That's how I see it, and I wanted to take 2 minutes to comment about what previously Sharmeen said, and I want to add on it. I think when Sharmeen was talking just now, I had this idea, as if the United States state is now, or the faith of the United States will be the faith of
Fate.
the fate of the USSR, because what China is doing, as you said, they have many bases and they have to catch up with China, which clearly they will not be able to. In their words, they can't catch up with China. And even the Minister of Defense said that China, they have one port that has an equivalent output of all of the Western, not American, Western ports combined together. And he also talked about the ports that manufacture vessels and military equipment and naval vessels, that they can't compete. But the mentality of the United States say that they will compete even though they will know they will sink. You know what I mean? They want to maintain this superiority. They have hundreds of bases. Now they want to build new submarines, because now the submarines of the Chinese are better. But the big difference is that China didn't have previously such submarines. Now they have, and now they are more superior, and they cost like tenth of what the United States pays for such submarines. That's only on submarines. Now they want to invest in drones, and they are very late to invest in drones. And now they want to invest in hypersonic missiles. All this will accumulate. And there is also leaks that I read on U.S. Newspapers and online outlets. They are saying that Trump asked in the Congress or inside the closed doors that within 2 years he wants the budget of Pentagon and of the defense to be $1.5 trillion, which is crazy in the United States. And the United States lacks many things. That's what happened, I think, in the USSR. Their economy was weak and they paid too much for weapons and for security. And eventually this was a big reason why they collapsed. So maybe if the United States wants to maintain 500, 600 bases across the world and build like technology equivalent to China, knowing that China pays less to this technology and to the manpower, and they are not that sophisticated as the United States, I think eventually this alone will lead to the collapse of the United States, especially under the rule of Trump.
Also, I mean, all these projects, all these constructs that the U.S. are putting out there, you know, in their little kinetic way, every day something's happening, we're still the masters of the world. They don't have money for it. And in the past, the way they'd go around this is people would buy their debt, right? And the Chinese and the Japanese were countries that would buy U.S. debt. And they're no longer
Japan
doing
is
that.
still Japan is still doing it, Charmaine. Japan. I mean, you saw what just happened this week, right? With the partner.
Yeah, but what is the Japanese economy on its own? Do you know what I mean? Like you could get people to invest in U.S. treasuries and you know, kick the debt can down the road. Increasingly, it's becoming harder. Again, the U.S. is isolating itself in the way Israel has isolated itself through bad behaviors, right? And then, of course, you see the economies of these countries versus the new developing economies. All of this, you know, it's not even the masses that have to realize it. It is capital that needs to realize it. Capital is what is driving the unipolar universe. When capital realizes or knows or just feels, I'm kind of done with Israel, I'm not putting risk there anymore, or like I'm going to de-risk from the U.S., because de-risking from the U.S. is now a commonly used refrain in Western media financial reporting, okay, and within Western banks, all right? Once that happens, capital decides to go where it can make money. And it's that simple. I mean, I don't even think you need a big thing to change that, to take that 1/3 that you think we're 1/3 of the way down, you know, through this process. It will just take a small thing, potentially to, you know, have the Americans fall off that tipping point. I mean, that's what I believe. But let's see, we are getting very theoretical here. Let's dive
But it's
into
nice. Nice. It opens the mind, you know. Being talking politics and being like this is as if you're listening to a beautiful poetry. You know what I mean?
Would you like a
And I
shisha
just
with
want
that too, a hookah?
Arabic poetry, of course. And I
love
just
it.
want to comment over the comments. I said this is one of the reasons why the USSR collapsed. I didn't say it's the sole reason. Many things contributed to the collapse. As the United States, many things will contribute to the collapse. One of them, Trump, the catalyst. One of them, the ignorance of the MAGA people. They act as if they are the rulers of the world. And partially, it's somehow correct, but you can't act like this. NATO, how they are treating NATO, how they ignoring the homeless, the economy. They are ignoring everything, and they are now fighting China. So many things are contributing to this. One of them, I think, the theory that I just spat.
Who we have we have, by the
No,
way,
not a word.
Spat.
we're doing very well, by the way, in views and likes. So if you haven't left that like button, if you haven't hit that like button, make sure to do it. We also have a very active troll in the comments. Thank you for your for joining us as well. Make sure you have hit that like button. I do think it's this conversation. It's very timely, honestly. Like trying to just unravel exactly what the plan is here, because I do think Trump, he came to the White House under the promise of making America great again, right? But I think his actual design is burn this country to the ground, burn it down to cinders, and then just rule over what's left, essentially. So yeah, I mean, any decision. Karim, I just sent you something on our chat. I tagged you in it. It's an image that shows the approval, and this is a recent poll that shows how much people in the U.S. support a U.S. attack on Iran. And the answer is not a lot. Not a lot of people support the U.S. initiating an attack on Iran under the current circumstances, he says. 49% oppose, while 21% favor. Now that's across party lines. And 30% don't know. The most classic of all answers in the U.S., right? Point them towards a map and ask them where Iran is, and enjoy the laughs.
They don't
But
even
yeah,
know
so-
where the Gulf of
No,
Mexico is.
ask him for Alaska, man. No need for.
So yeah, I think it also goes to what you were talking about a few minutes ago, Charmaine, that Donald Trump, if he bombs Iran, which I still maintain he's gonna do it. I don't see, honestly, a way in which this is not gonna happen, because if not, as you were saying too, like all conspiracy theories are turning out to be real. I feel like if he actually doesn't bomb Iran, then we're gonna get some very naughty videos of Donald Trump.
Yeah, but that's inevitable. I mean, if such videos exist, they're going to come out. There's a lot of things people who have that kind of leverage while the world's crumbling around them. This is the time they're going to use it in the next 3 years, for sure.
There is many videos, because if you spend some time, like the hours I spent on the Epstein files and scrolling in the footage and what the United States released, there's many hubs, and there is many control rooms, and there is many hard drives that are present in the photos with labels. There's like many terabytes of data, and these are not yet went public. Yani what we saw is photos taken by Epstein from his camera, and photos taken by the FBI that went to the island and like took pictures of the island. Part of these pictures are pictures of a hard drive and like hard drive hubs. Yani you have multiple hard drives. These were not yet exposed or released yet, and I doubt they will release it, because I think not the United States, I think the whole West with the Arabs will collapse unless people don't care anymore, as Esteban said. Maybe they are preparing, they are doing it like 3 million photos. So when you reach and you see everybody naked, it will be okay. So That's what I want to say, and also I want also to address. I know most of our viewers are from the United States. I think around 76%. We're not talking about you, of course. You know where's Iran and where's Alaska and where's everything. We're talking about your neighbors. You know, the ones on the right and to the left
Yeah.
that
No, I
have
mean,
the MAGA flag and MAGA hats and this stuff.
it's
Yeah.
truly atrocious, the U.S. education system.
MAGA's getting educated though
Yeah.
through YouTube. Really, they are.
Okay, guys. Oh, wait, there's one more because before we move on from the Epstein stuff, there is another UAE official that deserves our mention because she also pops up in the Epstein files. And I don't know if you have the post that we did about her, Karim. Her name is Hind Al Weiss. He's currently the head of the Human Rights Office in the UAE. And she also pops up dozens of times in the Epstein emails, in some of which she's actually talking about preparing some girls to be taken to Jeffrey Epstein. So
The island.
to the island, to who knows where. Honestly, man, like, I don't think it mattered exactly where they took them. I think all of these crimes were happening left or right, and probably still happening as we speak. And yeah, so I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts about that, or we can move on to.
I just think, by the way, all these like hearings and this and that, every day something's coming out. Like if they were smart, they would have dumped them all, unredacted, right? Just done that. By trying to control the way this is coming out, they're actually prolonging their pain. I'm talking about the Justice Department, the FBI, the people who want to protect the American elite, basically. I mean, do you know? I mean, there's sort of WikiLeaks was when they did the State Department cables. It was like literally every day you were looking for a new cable, you know, and they'd release like 10 at a time or whatever. And then when they lost their media partners, you know, like The Guardian, whatever, turned on them, they eventually we dealt with a big dump, and the big dump kind of took, you know, what's the expression? Took the steam? No. You know what I mean?
Yeah, took the steam out of it, right? Like they
Yeah, took the steam out of it. So I feel like these guys are holding on so tight to information that it's made people more curious and more adamant. And now you have Congress. It's become such a popular thing for members of Congress, even Republicans, to scrutinize the stuff. I mean, it's what their constituents want. You know, and because the whole debate of good versus evil is happening within MAGA, right? Anti-Israel folks, America firsters versus Israel firsters. It's happening to the base of this administration. It is, they are demanding answers. It's kind of, God, I love it.
But you know what's also happening, and you just reminded me of that, is this push to create a narrative that Epstein was an agent of Russia. That he was a Russian
No,
agent.
but nobody's believing that. They're saying,
Nobody's
well, did you
believing
see
it, but
Putin in
but
the Epstein
yes, but
files. Do you see Xi
it's
Jinping or
Wait,
Khamenei? Yeah.
Wait 6 months and he will be Iranian or Hezbollah. هلا in Lebanon they will they will
they will put him in the t-shirt, right, or waving the Hesed flag. I mean,
I just, before we continue, I just want to thank Golnara. She's always supporting us and watching all our videos, and also
very generous, yes.
Feral Cruz, and also courageous female.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone who's here.
Courageous.
We have we have almost 400 people connected right now, and almost as many likes. Oh my God, you guys are here to make me happy today. Thank you so much. Thank you, truly.
And just now, Wallah Majdi. Thank you.
What is it? Convince my wife we need to
It's
move
so
out of the
easy
US.
to
Oh
make.
my God, you need to move out yesterday.
Yeah, I need a credit to help me convince my wife we need to move out of the US.
Yes.
Listen, call me. I swear I've been doing this for years with my American friends who have been saying to me, it's not like I'm going to them. They're like, oh, I want to leave. And then, of course, Canada has become super like careful about Americans, because at some point so many Americans have been trying to leave, go to Canada where there's like
Nobody likes
nationalized
them
healthcare,
here
et cetera.
anymore. Nobody
No,
likes
they
them
don't,
here
but
anymore.
the Canadian immigration services have actually, what's that word? They've clamped down on Americans because they overstay their visa. They overstay their allotted amount of stay, and they try to live there. And so Americans are scrutinized. By the way, I learned years ago that one of the nationalities that British immigration most carefully scrutinized was Americans, because they think they own the world, so they completely overstay, right? And decide they're going to work here. What's anyone going to do about it? You know, so then friends started looking at Europe, and then Europe started crumbling economically. And then, of course, you had like the right-wing movements, and then you have the anti-immigration movements, and then you just have like no economy. So people are looking, and I've recently like run out of places that I think they'd like to go, and I've been suggesting the Far East.
Yeah.
I mean, no,
I-
the situation internally, it's really horrendous, no? Go ahead, Karim.
No, it's like a note for you and for our audience. Just to be frank with you, we had like, that's why also we started late. We had electricity issue in Lebanon, so one of the cameras is not fully charged. So I think we have like still like 7-8 minutes before we close.
Okay, so let's discuss one last thing. Let me just very quickly, there's always people here that come and follow me from other outlets that are asking us to put the podcast in Spanish. And to them, I don't know, maybe at the end I will do a little en español message for everyone else, but we are looking into that. One last thing before Karim's camera cuts out completely, we should discuss is actually twofold. One, essentially the emptying of Al Haul camp in northeast Syria of all ISIS families, according to reports, the transfer of about 5,000 ISIS members and maybe their families as well to Iraq, but more importantly, the withdrawal of U.S. troops from Al-Tanef base, which is in the tri-border area between Syria, Iraq, and Jordan, and where, as I always like to remind our viewers, Russian intelligence for years, and I think Iranian intelligence as well, said this is where ISIS is getting their training. So, yeah.
See what I told y'all? The new crusaders, the BAALISTs, they don't have enough manpower. You think it's a coincidence that thousands of ISIS fighters, now is the time that they're going to be released and blah, blah,
The
blah.
ISIS army in waiting, right? No longer in waiting.
That's what they used during Syria. That's what they used during Iraq. I mean, here's the thing, that Iraqis are genuinely worried about this. They're really worried about this. And I suspect it's one of the reasons why, you know, sort of a lot of the pro-Iran elements got more votes in Iraq's last election. Because ultimately, even anti-Iranian Iraqis kind of know who got rid of ISIS for Iraq, despite the American propaganda. It was the Hashd al-Shabi, by and large, right? And many of whom were armed and trained by Iran, because the Iranians do not like takfiri jihadis. They don't. They've always stood against us. They stood against us with the Taliban when the Taliban first came to Afghanistan, you know? So this is not a new thing. Despite Western efforts to make Iran, you know, put Iran in the same pot as Al-Qaeda and ISIS, Iran has been, they view each other as mortal enemies. Okay? Yeah. So I think this is very worrisome for the Iraqis. This is why those components got more votes in the last election. This is why I think people have been emboldened to call back Nouri al-Maliki, a strong man, you know, from the past, who is viewed as pro-Iran, but honestly has played with the Americans just as much, you know, I mean, played on the American side just as much. So things are moving in Iraq too. I mean, every inch of this West Asia is shaking. And the thing is, it's not just West Asia, right? It's your cities where you guys are too. I mean, everybody now palpably feels, you know, the earth quaking.
Exactly.
Yeah. Also, what you said, Esteban, is correct, and it's all over the media. And there's stuff also not in the media, is that part of these families are now in Lebanon, in Tripoli, in the north, and they also made like a ceremony for them to congratulate them, and of course to thank the ultimate president of the world, Ahmad al-Shari al-Julani, previously. So this is very dangerous for the whole world. Just we have to know that al-Julani and Abu Bakr al-Zarqawi and all of these names were together in the same prison in Iraq.
Kambuka.
Yes, 100%. And most of the people that committed all these massacres and all these things that we don't even see in movies, they all were imprisoned by the United States in Iraq.
And the Americans let every one of these leaders out.
100%. And some of them were also in Cuba. Help me here, Esteban. What's the name?
Guantanamo.
Guantanamo
The
also.
only foreign military base in Cuba, FYI.
Don't
Yeah,
you think
100%.
everyone in Guantanamo was innocent, though? Like, the real ones were out there
I
fighting for
don't
the
know.
Americans, right?
The ones that are not innocent were released 100%. So,
It's
this is very
It's
dangerous.
the taxi driver in Afghanistan or in Pakistan
Yeah,
who is still
yeah,
in Guantanamo.
100%.
You know, the real fighters are actually there doing American
exactly. They were
100%. So
released.
yes.
Go ahead. Finish your thought.
No. So this is very dangerous. This first shows tells us that a new group might emerge or will be revived. We might see explosions across the world in many specific cities, for instance, as we had previously. And also, the very important thing that you said, but we didn't comment on, is the U.S. withdrawing from Tanaf. Al-Tanaf was the most important base in Syria for the Americans. Nobody know anything about Al-Tanaf. The only thing that when people heard of Al-Tanaf is when the Iraqis sent a drone and it hit the base and 3 Americans died. Al-Tanaf, you couldn't even be close to Al-Tanaf for 55 kilometers, which is around 30 miles or 33 miles. If you just approach there, the Americans will kill you. It was very secretive. And suddenly now they withdrew. This means, and this tells us that for the Americans, Syria is 100%. That's what they want. They don't need a base. They don't want their presence. They don't want intelligence. They have accomplished what they want in Syria fully. That's why they withdraw. That's my opinion.
Or
Yes.
it could mean that they are planning to attack Iran and they don't want an American target for the Iraqis.
I think that's very likely. I think that's very likely.
No, because there's a missing information. Maybe I didn't say it. Al-Tanaf is a base that half of it in Syria and half of it in Jordan. In the official statement of the that came out from the United States Defense Department, they said now they emptied the northern part of the base in Syria and they withdrew to the Jordan part. The base still exists, but they withdrew the people from Syria. So it's still adjacent to the border, but it's no longer there. Yani there is no equipment and nobody knows where are the fighters because many people that we talk to, of course me and Sharmin, and there's many articles that people that are from the region and from there told us there's thousands of fighters ready and equipped by the United States and they live in this base. But what happened to them, we don't know. Are they now went to Syria? They gave them houses in Jordan. We don't know. So there is something fishy. And because it's the United States and Israel, there's something very dangerous being prepared maybe to the region or to European cities or we don't know where, maybe in China, we don't know.
Yep, never a dull moment in this region. And, you know, we could be doing this every day. If there is a war, I'm telling you, we're here every day, guys, because there's just too much going on.
It's going to move very quickly.
Just twice a week.
Yeah.
I just want to bring people's attention to the fact that we have another Rock the Cradle interview that will be out tomorrow with Ali Alizadeh. He is a very different kind of Iranian voice. He's actually, I love this, he's a socialist that I think is one of the most insightful commentators, okay, secular socialist, insightful commentators on the Islamic Republic of Iran, what went down there, who the actors are, who the Iranian oppositions, and he tells a fabulous account of why he does not support reformists in Iran, which neither do I because they're completely colonized. But we talk about the colonized minds of these reformists who are caught in a 1990s bubble and who still think the West is all powerful and that Iran can only have economy by dealing with the West, and who still think of China as people on bicycles wearing Maoist uniforms, right? Like, he's so spot on, and it's a fabulous insight. He does, of course, talk about the potential of a U.S.-Iran, Iran-Israel confrontation through his eyes. So it's definitely one to watch tomorrow.
So make sure to go and do that. Make sure that once you subscribe to our channel, to turn on the notification bell, so you know when a new video is out. I want to highlight one comment from a few minutes ago. It's Marcie Rasek. I'm very sorry if I'm butchering that. They say, I bought your merch. I thought instead of giving money here, the merch would also be some advertising. That's actually a great thing to do as well. You can check out our merch at thecradle.co, our main page, where you can also follow the link to become a Patreon. As I said at the beginning of this podcast, we are currently doing a Patreon drive. We want to continue to be an independent, journalist-driven outlet, reader-supported, wholly. So please help us reach that goal. We are slowly but surely moving towards our goal. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, please make sure to do as well. We want to thank everyone who joined this week. I want to thank everyone who has been very active in the comments as well. To thank to all of our Patreons as well. And so check out the new Rock the Cradle coming tomorrow. And we'll see you next Monday. Thank you, Karim. Thank you, Charmaine. And it was great seeing you guys.
Bye-bye.